walkways and connecting links. We have road, water, and wastewater studies. We have quite a few of those over the last little while. We have the Rec and Leisure Master Plan. And we have the Grand Bend Beach study. So for a small municipality, we have a lot of tools available to us that will help us plan our municipality's growth. So our first planning tool is the Planning Act. And the Planning Act sets out the ground rules for land use planning in Ontario and describes how land uses are controlled and who controls them. Okay. So the purpose of the Planning Act. The one thing I'll mention when I'm starting, you're going to see consistency through the Planning Act. You're going to see consistency through the provincial policy statement of the goals and objectives. What council's supposed to take into consideration when they're preparing their OP, when they're looking at development applications like zoning amendments, official plan amendments, subdivisions. So there's a consistency through here. So if it sounds like I'm repeating myself, it's the intention that I'm repeating myself, because these are the goals that we have to meet and the things that we need to keep in our minds when we're looking at policy, okay? So the purpose of the Planning Act are to promote sustainable economic development and a healthy natural environment. Sounds like why we need an official plan to me. To provide for a land use planning system that's led by provincial policy. Whether individually we like that the province tells us how to plan, the province is the lead in planning in Ontario. And it's through the Planning Act and through the provincial policy statement that they lead our decision making. To integrate matters of provincial interest in provincial and municipal planning decisions. To provide for planning processes that are fair by making them open, accessible, timely, and efficient. So that the province also tells us how to make our planning decisions open and transparent, right? Which is what we've been trying to do. We want them to be timely, so it establishes timeframes for us to deal with applications in. To encourage cooperation and coordination among various interests. So lots of times in development applications we might have conflicting interests. We have the public interest and we have the private interest. And it's the intention of our policy to provide some balance between the two so that each is a winner. To recognize the decision-making authority and accountability of municipal councils in planning. The province recognizes that local councils make decisions, okay? So they want what the local council does. For example, if one of your decisions is appealed to the Ontario Municipal Board, they want your decision and the reasons you made your decision to be forefront at the Ontario Municipal Board. Okay, they want to know why you decided what you decided, because you have the authority to make the decisions.
We have a question.
Yep.
Should we have the last bullet G to
go back?
Should we have a last bullet G under that to recognize that the Ontario Municipal Board will negate F even though all the best intentions are there?
Well,
we could have an H2 that says as long as the Green Energy Act.
Well, again, the province is, again, whether you agree or don't agree, the province is in charge in Ontario. They are. They're the ones, they have the higher legislative authority. We are the product of the province, okay? So the province has the ability to do that. The Ontario Municipal Board, another provincial body. Do I agree with all the decisions of the board? Of course not, okay? But you will find in the provincial policy statement and in the legislation that the province has recognized that the Ontario Municipal Board sometimes doesn't give any consideration to what the council of the municipality decides. And that is changing. It is changing, and you will see in the legislation as we go through that it is.
Through you to our planning. So basically, all of Ontario is supposed to follow this all the way through.
Yes.
So technically, a planner could go from area to area and be able to look at that and go, oh yeah, that's because of this. Like you go into another municipality using the tools that you have and understand why somebody's done what they've done and what they've done.
Yes.
Okay.
Planning's changed over the 30 years I've been a planner, but it changes slowly.
Yes.
Okay, so as part of the Planning Act, there's legislation for provincial administration. And so the minister is the one who delegates all responsibility in the Planning Act. But the provincial interest states that the council of the municipality shall have regard to matters of provincial interest such as, so in all of our decisions, we have to have regard for matters of provincial interest. And in the Planning Act, the province tells us what those provincial interests are. And again, this is going to sound repetitive because it's intended that way. The protection of the ecological system, including natural features and functions. That's a really important one for us here in Lambton Shores because we have so many natural, beautiful natural features that need protection. The protection of the agricultural resource of the province. You will find when we eventually get to the Lambton Shores Draft Official Plan that the first two sections in ROP are agriculture and natural heritage. Okay. That's because these are the two most important things we do. All the rest are intended to support them. Okay? So agriculture's big industry in Ontario, and it is very protected by the Planning Act and by the provincial policy statement. The conservation and management of natural resources and mineral resource base. So our gravel pits, our sand pits, all important to economic development in Ontario. The conservation of features of significant architectural, cultural, historical, archaeological, or scientific interest. So architectural, our downtowns, preservation of our downtowns. Our cultural heritage, historical, that all ties together with that. Archaeological, again, Lambton Shores is full of archaeological areas that will and are protected through legislation. When we do a subdivision approval, someone has to do an archaeological study on the property that they intend to develop. The supply and efficient use and conservation of energy and water. That's another big thing these days. Sustainability, efficiency. We look at the design of our subdivisions. We look at the compactness of our communities to be more efficient in delivery of service, to be more efficient in energy consumption. The adequate provision and efficient use of communications, transportation, sewage and water services, and waste management systems. So we plan to be, again, efficient in the provision of all of the services that we're responsible for and that, hydro is responsible for, gas is responsible for, all in an efficient manner. That's the intention. We want to minimize waste, and we want orderly development that's safe and encourages healthy communities. Okay, so that's the introduction of walkways, pathways, connections. We want safe, so you plan so that street lights and that there's people always around, so we have safe communities. And again, we plan for accessibility for people with disabilities to all our facilities and services, and to any matter which this Planning Act applies. We do that all the time in Lambton Shores. We have an accessibility committee that looks at our own facilities and makes recommendations to council on how we can make them more accessible and more easily accessible. The act provision and distribution of educational, health, social, cultural, and recreational facilities. So it's the whole community. We want all the things, not only the infrastructure, the hard services, but we need the soft services that go along to making our communities vibrant. The adequate provision of full range of housing, including affordable housing. So generally we don't want all single-family dwellings on acre lots because not everybody, A, can afford them, or B, wants them. We want to encourage diversification in our neighborhoods and in our communities, so we provide for a range of different types of dwelling types, apartments, townhouses. The added provision of employment opportunities.
Just go back to J.
Yep.
It says the adequate provision of a full range of housing.
Mm-hmm.
Has it changed to the point where there's actual numbers that are attached to that now? Or is it still that general interest that flows from Europe?
Well, the province was very keen on, if you probably recall that affordable number for a house in your community. Yeah. They look now for more of a mix as opposed to the price and the cost, implying that a denser development would provide more affordable housing. That's generally how it is.
So what you just talked about, a mix of that would be?
Mm-hmm. Well, a mix of that right now, if I will use an example that we have right now, the rice lands.